Greetings, fellow conquerors. This is darkfireslide, and welcome to a new video series that I'm going to call The Great Ideas in EU4, in which I'm going to attempt to talk about every single idea group, when to take it, if it's any good, etc., etc. So we're going to begin with the very first idea group that you normally would see here. Unfortunately, we can't see it being in the first slot because I have already taken it as Kilwa. In this campaign I've kind of been doing on the side is kind of a side project, honestly, but anyway, Innovative Ideas is the first admin idea group that we will see, and so that's what we're going to begin with. So I'm going to talk about what is good, what each of the ideas actually does in this group, as well as kind of discuss a little bit about these, and then talk about the policies of Innovative Ideas, as well as talk about the events of Innovative, and then I'm going to close with my thoughts on Innovative as an idea group as a whole, and whether or not you should take it, and when, and if so. So anyway, let's begin. We start out with Patron of the Arts, which gives a -1% to Prestige Decay. This means that the base 5% decay for Prestige becomes 4%, which means that Prestige decays at a much slower rate. This means that you're going to be able to keep all of the nice bonuses that Prestige gives you, that you can see: global trade power, morale of armies and navies, mercenary cost, foreign spy detection, yearly legitimacy, improved relations, aggressive expansion impact, and institution embracement cost. You can keep all that much easier thanks to this idea. It's very similar to the, I believe it's Aristocratic? No. I'm thinking of a different idea. There's one basically that does this for military ideas, and it's very, very useful for that reason, but I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head, so just take my word for it. Anyway, so that's Patron of the Arts. Pretty good. Then we have Pragmatism, Mercenary Maintenance -25%. I believe I remember hearing that mercenaries are about like 175 or 225% more expensive than normal infantry, so this would bring that modifier down to like 200%. It makes mercenaries cheaper, and if you use a lot of mercenaries, that's pretty good, especially if you take another idea group that further lowers their costs, such as administrative ideas or other ideas that just lower troop maintenance. It's okay. I personally don't use mercenaries that much. A lot of people do. So if you use a lot of mercenaries, you may find this to be useful for helping your economy. Next we have Scientific Revolution, which gives technology cost -10% and institution embracement cost -10%. Back in the day, this only used to give technology cost -10%, and while that was pretty good, the institution embracement cost makes this idea much better, in my opinion, because you go from, if you're a big empire especially, it can cost upwards of 2,000 ducats to embrace an institution, so this will save you literally hundreds of ducats, especially if you take this early on. So the technology cost seems really good, and this is kind of what some people might call a noob trap in other games. The technology cost itself is good. It will save you a lot of points over the course of the game, but really the main advantage of getting technology cost down is that you will be able to pick up mostly military ideas, or military technology rather, before your opponents, which means you can often get a military tech advantage over your opponents, which is very, very useful. This is also very useful outside of Europe, where you're not swimming in points and where you often have tech cost increases, and so this can help counteract that a little bit, at least to a point. And with institutions, though, this has become much more useful in Europe as well. So that's Scientific Revolution. It also, when you unlock this idea, unlocks certain events, which is something else to keep in mind. And we'll talk about those events when we get there. So then we have Dynamic Court, which adds possible advisors +1. If you've ever been itching to have a certain advisor, say you need a theologian or a army reformer or a statesman at a given time, this will give you a better chance of getting him, although it is not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. It's an okay idea group, although most of the time, to be honest, I usually find that there's enough advisors of each type that it's not really an issue, although it can give you more options within a price range that you can actually afford, which is nice as well. So it's okay. Next we have the Resilient State, which is reduce inflation cost -10%, which brings the total cost down to 68 from 75, meaning that to pay back the idea group, you would have to do this upwards of something like 57 times. You would have to reduce inflation 57 times for this to pay for itself. So I think it kind of goes without saying here that this is not a very good idea overall, in my opinion. It doesn't save you very many points, and it's not very good. Next we have Optimism, which is arguably the best idea in this entire group. It lowers monthly war exhaustion by 0.5, or sorry, 0.05. This doesn't sound like a lot, but the thing you have to consider is when you are at war, war exhaustion doesn't go up automatically unless you have occupied provinces. So the reason that this is so good is because even while you're at war, your war exhaustion goes down. And on top of that, if you aren't actually losing battles, if you aren't losing, having provinces occupied, your war exhaustion will actually go down at war. And I don't think I need to stress how awesome that is to come out of a war with someone having 0 war exhaustion. That can result in some serious unrest reduction. Basically, this is like, humanist tolerance of heathens +3 levels of unrest reduction, given, depending on how tough the war actually is, of course. But it is a very, very good feeling to come out of a war with no war exhaustion. And for world conquest, this is, a lot of people consider this part of the necessary toolkit in order to actually accomplish that, because of how good that is. So in my opinion, best idea of the group. And if you're just taking it for the ideas, which you shouldn't, this would be the main reason that you take innovative ideas. Next, we have Formalized Officer Corps. This one is one of those ideas that a lot of people are torn on. Some people really, really like this idea. So I just find it more of a nice thing. It's not actually game-changing or that great. So Leaders Without Upkeep is, just getting that extra leader that you can command without having to pay extra upkeep every month. This is very nice in certain situations. If you ever need an admiral, for example, having this is very, very nice. If you need to have a conquistador but still need 2 generals for your armies, this is a nice idea to have, but it is by no means necessary, given that you can just transfer a conquistador to an actual army if you need to. So, I think this is a good idea group. Or sorry, this is a good individual idea for actual for colonists and colonizers, but for land-based empires, until the very late game, this is not a very useful idea. So then we finish the group with advisor costs -25%. This can be very useful, especially if you are a monarchy and roll lots of crap leaders. Because you're going to be needing to buy advisors to make up for the points that you don't have because your leader is crap. So the main thing about advisor costs -25% is it's, the better of an advisor you get, the better the payoff is for this idea group. So on a right now, for example, as Kilwa, I'm paying 5.77 ducats a month. This will of course go up over time, depending on how long this goes on. Of course, I do also have a well-connected ruler here, so that's going to factor into it as well. But as we can see, base cost is only 4 ducats plus inflation and plus the current year modifier, but we can reasonably assume that a +3 advisor at this point would probably cost something around 13 or 14 ducats a month. So that would be a pretty good price reduction, honestly, when you factor in the actual bonus here of advisor cost -25%, because we're going to end up with something like a 3 or 4 ducat reduction a month to get a +3 advisor, which is pretty good, especially when you consider that every +3 advisor has a chance to spawn an event that can really, really help your country, and especially further lower tech costs. Okay, so those are the actual ideas of innovative ideas, and let's move on to the actual policies. So there's a lot of policies here, but I'm going to direct you to 4 of them that are actually good and worth taking, in my opinion, given the amount of points that you have to pay. So first we have, with diplomatic ideas, we get the Diplomatic Cooperation Act, which gives advisor costs -10%, which is pretty good, and diplomatic reputation +1, which can be very, very useful in certain circumstances. It can help you annex vassals faster, it can help you get alliances you wouldn't otherwise, and it costs 1 diplo point a month. What are you doing with those diplomatic points anyway, right? So that to me is a good one. It's not great, but it is good, and if you are taking diplomatic ideas anyway, it's a nice bonus to have with innovative. Okay, so next we get to aristocratic ideas. If you took aristocratic ideas for whatever reason, I'm not here to judge. The Combination Act gives you a production efficiency bonus of 20%. This is very, very powerful, especially in the late game when you have tons and tons of factories, lots of goods produced, and, say you're making something like, oh, I don't know, 20 ducats a month base off of that. That's going to be another 4 ducats a month on production efficiency, and that's a lot of, 4 ducats a month is a lot more troops that you're going to be able to field. That 4 ducats a month is more than what a lot of nations make to start with in EU4. And that's just, you know, again, the further you get into the game, the better this becomes. Okay, and then we're going to get on to the main two ideas that make innovative or policies that make innovative worth taking, and that's going to be first modern siege weapons, which combos with offensive ideas. Costs a military idea point per month, gives you leader siege +1 and siege ability +10%. Leader siege +1 means that every time that you take or roll a new general, he is going to have a guaranteed siege pip. I don't think I need to explain how useful this is, because it makes sieges go faster, and anything that makes sieges go faster is very, very, very good, especially in how ridiculous forts are, especially in the late game when forts are very, very hard to siege in the first place. So this can be very good. This can result in some crazy high siege leaders, make sieges go very, very quickly, especially since the siege ability is effectively reducing the siege tick time by 10% in the first place. And that leaves us with one more. That's modern firearm techniques, and this is going to be the main reason that a lot of people take innovative ideas. It is this combination with quality ideas that gives the bonus of infantry combat ability +20%, and a lot of people, I mean a lot of people, swear by this idea and take this combination pretty much every game. In my opinion, I think it's a little overrated. It's a very, very powerful bonus. But the thing you have to understand about combat ability as opposed to discipline or morale is that it means that your troops are dealing 20% additional damage, and that's it. So they don't have any more survivability, they don't have any more, any more morale. And the thing is, if you're already a powerful nation, this is going to help you win better. You know, if there is such a thing as winning better, and this is really going to help you do that, especially considering that quality ideas already gives you 10% infantry combat ability. So when you put on that policy, you're going to be at a 30% additional damage bonus for your troops, plus whatever discipline amount that you have. Now, I've done an in-depth video, and that's not like a strict, direct sort of calculation, but overall, that's going to be effectively just for having this idea group completed and for having this policy, it's going to effectively be 35% more damage that your infantry are dealing, which means that in situations where you outnumber the enemy, especially, you are going to absolutely crush. And if you do have this idea group, I highly recommend that you take troops that have very high pips related to actual shock and fire rather than morale, because your troops are going to deal even more damage in that regard. So that's going to be the main reason people take this, and in multiplayer it will certainly give you an edge, where especially a lot of the time you are fighting against countries that have equal armies to yours, whereas in, against the computer, you're often just completely dwarfing their armies, which then is still useful, but then again, if you completely dwarf your enemy, it doesn't really matter what you're fighting with in the first place. But overall, very good idea. If a little, just a teensy bit overrated in my opinion, mainly because it costs a military point per month, and that's something to definitely consider anytime you take a military-based policy. Okay, so now that we've talked about the policies and the actual ideas of innovative, now we're going to talk about the actual innovative events, and I can't just make I could make all these spawn if I actually looked and went to the console and yada yada, but I'm just going to read them off to you instead. And these are the main ones, which actually are most of the ones for innovative in the first place. But we're going to start with dangerous ideas are spreading, which is a -1 stability hit, and there's no way to counter this. There's no, as far as I'm aware, no leader trait that changes this if you have Rights of Man. There is just as long as you have innovative, there is a chance to get a -1 stability hit. Now, I'm pretty sure that other idea groups have this as well, but it still just sucks knowing that for taking innovative, because for most of these, these activate the second you take innovative. The second you unlock it from the actual tree, these ideas are going to become active. So the second you activate innovative, there's a chance that you can just get a -1 stability hit, which sucks. And there's nothing you can do about it. It might trigger, every 5-year pulse, but I mean not really, but you get what I'm saying. So next we have New Thinkers Arise, which is a 20% chance to get one of multiple good advisors except for the Naval Reformer. Those 5 advisors are the Statesman, which is Diplomatic Reputation +1. Actually, I think it might be +2. And the Army Reformer, which is +10% land morale. The Army Reformer is a very, very good advisor, and so getting one of those available is often a very nice bonus that you get just for having this. And all these are free, by the way. So it's nothing bad happens as a result of this event. You also have a chance to get a Natural Scientist, which is 10% production efficiency, and a Treasurer for a 10% tax bonus. Both of those basically paying for themselves, especially in the late game. The next event is a dual-sided event. One is called like Epic Art, and the one is called No Good Art Produced, or something like that. I'm butchering these. But basically, this is either a +10 or -10 to Prestige. Pretty simple, not that impactful, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. Next, we have the Scientific Revolution Continues, which is a choice for you. You get to choose between having -10% to one technology cost type for 10 years. This sounds pretty good, and it is. It can help you get a military idea before somebody else, which is always good when you have a military tech advantage. However, there's also a counterpoint event to this called the Scientific Revolution Halts, which gives a +5% to all technology costs. So it's kind of a give and take. It's not just a good thing. However, there is another event separate from these called Wave of Innovation, which gives you a -5% to all tech costs, which is obviously pretty good, and again can help you get ahead of the game. Again, I want to reiterate that having tech cost reduction is less about saving points and more about just getting ahead of your opponents, or getting into situations, for example, where maybe you're not getting corruption because your diplomatic tech is ahead of time or is not behind time. Things like that, much more so than just, oh, look, I saved like 1,000 points over the course of the game or something like that. So then the last, the last idea, or last event rather, I'm getting my terms mixed up, is the Burst of Thought. There is one of these for each type of monarch point. So there's Burst of Administrative Thought, a Look Outward, and Military Theory. One gives a +50 to administrative points, one +50 to diplomatic points, and one is +50 to military points. All these are just useful. Getting free points is always nice, and you never know. I mean, 50 military points is always good because that means it's exactly the amount you need to roll a general, and hey, you might need to do that sometimes. So that's just always nice to have. It's also enough to raise war taxes, I believe. So 50 military points especially is pretty good. However, the administrative one also, if you have more than one corruption, it will actually lower your corruption by 1, but if your corruption is below 1, you will get 50 admin points instead. So what do I think of Innovative Ideas overall? I think Innovative Ideas is actually a pretty solid group, pretty good, and you might not think so, given that I made a video forever ago saying why I don't like Innovative Ideas personally. And while some of the points in that video still stand true, it's hard not to admit that Innovative Ideas is actually pretty good. Most of the times I've taken it, I don't regret it when I take it. The only reason that I don't personally like Innovative Ideas that much is because I find that Administrative and Humanist are both much better to take at the same point in the game when you would want to take Innovative. So to me, it's not that Innovative is bad, it's just that I much prefer, in single player anyway, the bonuses that Administrative and Humanist Idea gives, or yeah, over Innovative Ideas. But that being said, getting 30% infantry combat ability when combined with quality, and if you don't take Innovative with quality, you're kind of doing it wrong, and that's kind of another reason I don't like Innovative, is because if you take Innovative, you kind of have to take quality. And sometimes I don't want to take quality. Sometimes I want to take defensive offensive. Sometimes I want to take aristocratic quantity and just have a buttload of manpower, you know? So that's another reason I don't particularly like Innovative, even though it is a solid group. And again, most of the ideas in this are nice, but the only one that's really game-changing, in my opinion, is Monthly War Exhaustion Reduction, which is, again, extremely powerful. Cannot stress how powerful this is. But yeah, so that's Innovative Ideas. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comment section. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, I do plan on doing one of these for every single idea group as time allows. Be sure to like the video, and of course, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to see more EU4 and Grand Strategy content in the future. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.